yesterday. On May 1, President Trump announced the abrupt withdrawal of 5,000 troops from Germany. May 14, the cancellation of a rotational brigade of 4,000 to Poland. May 19, the president then reportedly reversed that decision about the Poland deployment, but we don't have any further details. And I just learned yesterday about there being no plan to replace the 1,000 troops in Lithuania who just finished one of those heel-to-toe deployments. As you may know, 4 Americans were killed in Lithuania in a training accident. I was at Dover Air Force Base along with senior leaders in the administration and a bipartisan group of members of Congress to receive their remains, and was really stunned. The people of Lithuania formed a human chain from where they left to the airport, miles and miles, to celebrate their service. We have great and close allies in NATO, but because of some comments that have been made by the president and others about Greenland and Denmark, because of some of these troop rotations, they really lack confidence in us. As you know, there's a provision in last year's NDAA that prohibits the administration from lowering the number of troops below 76,000. And with these latest troop realignments, we're getting dangerously close to that. Will you commit to following the law and sustaining U.S. troop levels in Europe at a minimum of the statutorily required? And do you understand how comments about Spain not pulling its weight really don't meet the reality that the overwhelming majority of our NATO allies, largely because of bipartisan and sustained pressure on them, have led them to significantly step up? As you just said a few minutes ago, they're funding all of the weaponry going into Ukraine now. Can we stop scaring our NATO allies and sustain a regular troop presence in compliance with law?
So a couple, you know that on the issue of troop deployments and numbers around the world, that is not a Department of State function. That is a Department of War.
Yes, but I'm the leading Democrat on defense approach, and I got nothing out of Secretary Hicks.
So, but I can speak to a few of these because of my other role, and I get to see some of this. I'm not here to testify, National Security Advisor. I was told by the lawyers to say that. All right. So, but I can speak to it because I'm aware of it. A couple points. On some of these rotations that have occurred, like, for example, the one in Germany, I know it got a lot of headlines, but frankly, the Germans themselves were not that exercised about it. They are aware that all it did is take us back to 2022 numbers. So they knew this was not a surprise to them. This was ongoing, and it was planned. What was a surprise is that it hit the media before they had been informed of it formally, but they were aware of that front. In the case of Poland, you rightly pointed out, there was this short-term rotational withdrawal, but the president wanted to make it clear that our relations with Poland are very solid, and therefore made the announcement the following day as I was arriving at the foreign ministers meeting of NATO in NATO. What I will tell you, and I can't say, but I can't speak with specificity because it's not our department, is we are constantly reevaluating our force posture all over the world, because just as NATO wants us to have X number of troops in Europe, the Indo-Pacific wants to make sure we're not going to leave South Korea and we're not going to leave Japan. And our partners in Africa now, for example, in Nigeria and other places, want to know that we're committed to the counterterrorism mission. And our allies in the Middle East want to know that now we're not going to leave them because some base got hit by a drone. And in the Western Hemisphere, we have growing cooperation and a desire. So the Pentagon and the Department of War have to constantly take extraordinary but still limited resources and allocate them around the world. I can't speak in detail to those alignments. What I can tell you is that everything we are doing is, none of it is being done as a shock or surprise to our allies in NATO.
I'll simply share with you that a defense minister and several senior parliamentarians from several NATO allies said to me yesterday they were stunned and unaware of the impending departure of a unit in Lithuania without a follow-on unit, and of the decisions and announcements about Poland. Let's just agree that NATO is critical, and we're going to work harder to make sure they understand. I also want to associate myself with the comments about pressure on Russia. Finally getting to yes on this sanctions bill, and this is me and Secretary Hegseth, delivering the interceptors that Zelensky is begging us for, would put that pressure on.
Then like, share, and subscribe to Mirror Now.